Blog Talk Radio.
Unmarket Your Business, the podcast. Born out of the need to share strategies and techniques that really work to market your business. Think yellow page ads and cold calls are your only choices? That's so last century. You're about to learn tested, tried and true marketing techniques you can apply and master, ones that feel authentic instead of salesy, strategies that are true to who you are and how you want to present yourself to your ideal clients. Let's join our host, Carol Joyce Dunlop, in the studio now and allow business success to move forward. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Carol J. Dunlop, and I want to welcome you here today. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me for the podcast. I know this is one day off, but yesterday my husband and I had the fabulous opportunity to actually be part of a project for the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra out of the UK, where they are working with stroke survivors and Emory and a national association in using music therapy. It was totally awesome. We spent most of the day, and I had planned to actually get this up and running by then, but of course it didn't work out that way. But we had a great time. So again, I want to thank you for joining me, and I have a very special guest who I interviewed just a little bit ago, and I'm going to run her interview in just a moment, Renee Garner. She has a book coming out, and she has a play coming out about the man monster, and I am helping her with that, so I'm so excited to bring her on. And she's going to tell you all about how to recognize the man monster and how to stay out of the throes of a man monster. It's very interesting, so stay tuned. She's coming up next. Okay, so I want to bring on my guest now, Renee Garner. How are you doing today, Renee?
Excited. How are you today?
I am awesome. I couldn't wait to get you on. I really had to just sneak you in because I'm backed up. You know, I have guests coming on in the coming weeks, but I had to get you on here because I think your story is just so worth telling. I'm so excited about it. So before we get into the whole thing, why don't you tell my listeners who you are and give them a little bit of background about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Carol. This is an amazing platform. I am so extremely grateful to you. Listen, I am Renee Garner, and my background is just simply a woman that grew up with a mom and a dad, a loving family, and I have now a daughter who is 14 and a son who is 2, almost a decade apart. And so as I grew up and learned life and did some great things in life, I also grew up in the ministry and grew up in the streets. So I'm that roundaway girl, but I got a little twist of that church girl too. And so great background, great combination to have both of them. You know, they say train a child in the way that she should go. And I'm so glad they did that for me because I love the Lord with all my heart, my mind, and soul. So I'm a mamapreneur. I'm a business person, and I am an IT background person by trade.
Okay, awesome. Now, the story, we know the story is in the news right now of women just having issues with men, with other stuff. There's been domestic violence reports. There's a whole Hollywood thing. You have something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is going through domestic violence. Now, that's not quite the thing that's in the news now, but it's still a part of it because as women, we have to protect ourselves and we have to be aware of all the things that are going on. So tell us about your story, and then we're going to get into the man monster and how you recognize him and all that.
You know, I thank you for that opportunity. And yes, you are absolutely right. There is so much domestic violence. This is Domestic Violence Month right now, the month of October. And there is so much information that's going on, the awareness. And I'm so glad to see that the awareness is out here now even more. So when I first went through my first situation, Being engaged and dating someone, you never expect to date someone that's going to hurt you. You never seek out to say, hey, I want to date this person, and yes, I want him to hurt me. So domestic violence is just something that you're not aware of. It's just really something that you have to start tuning your gut intuition into the things that you see in a relationship that's not healthy. And those not healthy things will quickly turn into domestic violence or hitting or verbal abuse or financial abuse. So when I think about my story, I think about wanting to be in love, and I think about, how we met. I mean, my man was my extreme best friend. He was my cheerleader. He was the one that said, you can go do it. You can be successful. I just want to backtrack because, there is 10 million people that are being abused by their partners, per year, according to the National Coalition. And that just break it down to be just 22 people a day. 22 men and women are being abused a day. So the process of being abused is very significant. And then the person will return back to their partner 7 times before they either get out or something else happens. They're out. So domestic violence, priority, number one, there's physical side of it, and then there's the mental side of it. There's the psychological side of it. There's the sexual side of it, and then there's the financial side of it. So I'm going to express that I've been into both sides. I've been into the psychological side as well as the physical side. The psychological side says, I'm with you, I'm dating you, I'm married to you, you're my significant other, and we're going to do this life together. We're living life together. You're dating that person is honeymooning you, buying you roses, taking you to dinner, you get married, and all of a sudden life change. When life change, you really don't, as a woman, see that change because in my situation, I was still enjoying my man that I met, my man that I was engaged with, my man that was just there for me, my cheerleader man, my supportive man, my provider man. When it stopped happening, I'm thinking, well, we're together now. That's no big deal. He doesn't have to always buy me flowers. Roses are my favorite, but, we're together. We don't need them every week now. We're done that part. But I still wanted it in my mind, in my psyche. I still wanted that, that affection and love. But I got that from him because we were together all the time. And in that togetherness, I noticed that, some people would, just shy away from me. Family, friends would start to shy away from me. And I had one situation where my sister shared with me, I don't think he's the right person for you. But you know how we do as women. We want to go with our man because he cares for us. Or you've been with him a year. You gotten a chance to meet family. You kind of know him. You're intertwined with them. So you don't really see the change until it starts to hurt you. Until you start to feel degraded. And so my situation, as strong as I was in the church and as preaching and going out and talking to people about Jesus, in my household, I was really being verbally abused. I was being mentally abused. And then when I start to see it for myself, you couldn't tell me anything different because if you told me the sky was purple, I'd be like, yeah, baby, the sky is purple and I'm in love with you. But as I saw the women coming forth, telling me, he said this sexually to me. He offered this sexually to me. And as I started to feel like, I wasn't that smart woman anymore, I literally would say, I just, the pastor said sometimes you got to put barbecue sauce on your wife so they can look good. Those are the things. Those are the things that I was dealing with, that controlling on different levels of image and making sure we were both in the same beauty industry, making sure I stayed up to par so I can stay up to his standards. Mm-hmm. Over time, it got hard. Over time, I started getting hit and I started getting abused. And I could just remember a woman giving me a book to read, and that book changed my life. That book, she told me the title of it was about me. And so I made a stance for myself. And in that stance, I got hit, and I called the police. And I remember picking up a pot and trying to hit back, and there was an altercation. The baby, 1 year old, sitting there. And that was a day that I knew, the look in his eyes, that we needed to end. We needed to end that day. I tell people all the time about
Yeah. I'm so glad you got out. I'm so glad you got out with your life and that you can tell this story, because so many women do not get out. You know, we only learn about them because they're the headline on the Channel 2 Action News or something, that the person has killed them. And I know it happens to men too, but it happens to women overwhelmingly more. But, you know, men are in there too. So I'm just thankful to God that you're here now.
Thank you very much. I mean, you know, that was my first altercation. Hence, when I was in that relationship, there was a book that was birthed inside of me. I just didn't know it was my book to write. And all the things and all the forgiving things that I went through. And, you know, I don't know if it was because I got saved and got a little bit more forgiving, if you will, because the street girl inside of me wouldn't have went through any of that. But the Christian girl inside of me said, hey, wait a minute. Let me submit my gifts and talents. But God never called me to submit my gifts and talents. He called me to submit myself in a marriage, not my gifts and talents. I had to come to the realization really recently that if God wanted women to submit their gifts and talents, he wouldn't have given us them from birth. So I realized that that was a myth of the Bible that I just had wrong. I was submitting to someone that was controlling and manipulative and physically abusive, and that wasn't the call of my life as a wife or a woman. That wasn't my responsibility. But I will tell you the importance of learning that lesson and moving on, and it took me some years. I pretty much said, okay, I'm going to move forward. There is a process that I teach in my book that talks about moving forward and burying situations, leaving it how to end. And I say bury because, you know, if you think about the analogy of putting something in the ground, you don't want to go back and get it because it's going to be, you know, stinky. It may not be look right. You just don't go back and dig up anything that's dead. You let it stay there. You bury it. But you go and clean the roots and the weeds. And what I realized was, as I started dating, I thought I was moving forward. But my second man monster, he was something that I just didn't clear out the weeds. He was even worse than the first one. It was more psychological, and that's a narcissistic patterns that I talk about in the book, where someone would come into your life and they literally will control you and utilize you as a supply for them, utilize you for whatever that particular good is that they need at that time, whether it's sexual, whether it's financial, whether it's just to get away from their real life to come talk to you, whether it's to be with you, but they'll spend a few days with you here, and then once they utilize your time that week with you, then they go off maybe to work, so you're thinking, or with another person, and then they come back to you. That's a narcissistic pattern. And once they start to get caught in that pattern, it's something called gaslighting. And in that gaslighting, it's like literally striking a match to a flame and watching it go up. They start to lie, they start to, you know, hurt you, they start to do some things to you psychologically and emotionally, all while utilizing you as a supply and demand. When they use you up, they'll pull you to the side. When they want you to come back, they come back and get you. And so we do that in relationships, back and forth sometimes. I mean, you know, but chaotic in relationships, any relationships, on the edge of it is okay, but staying in chaos is not good. So in this particular case, I didn't even know I was being psychologically abused because, one, my first man monster, he and I was in the same business, so I didn't want to be with somebody that I was with all the time. I was okay with you going to work, you know, for a weekend, and I'm fine with that. So I was more accepting and understanding just based on my past. And that's another thing that a person can utilize is based on your past stories that you're sharing. They can figure out how they want to put you in their world. Fast forward, I was pregnant, Carol, and we're building our relationships. We're engaged. We're looking for rings. We're looking to buy a house. And I got pregnant. And in my pregnancy, it was a very beautiful pregnancy, but he was very distant. And I thought just because we owe like Sarah and Abraham having babies, I thought that was his distance. But I didn't realize that was his exit plan. I was finished. And my son came 2 months early. And in that 2 months early, I, called everybody, texted everybody. No one was around, not even my mom and dad, not even family and friends, because it was Easter Friday. And I went to the hospital, and my life changed. My life changed. I ended up with high blood pressure. The baby wasn't moving. He was getting low. He was getting oxygen, but the return rate from him was really low. And preeclampsia had set in, like, in that hour. The next day, I couldn't wait the 2 days. The next day, they delivered my son. Dad is fussing at me over the phone, saying he couldn't be there. You know, he had a story of reason why he wasn't there, which, of course, wasn't true. And I was just in the hospital by myself. One of my good friends showed up. I call her Angel because she just was an angel. I worked with her. She just showed up, and she was able to help me through the process. When I tell you I couldn't even think for myself, I couldn't even make the right choices for myself because there was so much stress and so much pressure. They delivered mommy baby successfully, and 4 days later, my life literally will never be the same. I remember seeing my father. I remember being told that I was going to stay an additional day. They were going to let me go home. Thank God they did, because I saw my dad, and I went into a coma. I went to sleep. I went to sleep for 3 days.
Wow.
Yes, I did. I went to sleep for 3 days. They were about to discharge me. So when they're booked in the hospital, I'm literally discharged. But just by the grace of God, they came in and said, the doctor said, we're just going to keep you an additional day since you're complaining about these cramps in your legs. The cramps got so severe in the next 15 minutes that my heart gave out. That's my account that I can remember. And I can remember waking up in the ICU room. I can remember having like these horrible nightmares, but it wasn't my life. So if that's anything like hell, I sure don't want to go there.
I know that's right. Jeez.
And so I woke up, and when I woke up, I couldn't use my faculties in my body. Everything had to come back. I was like a vegetable. I was shaking. I was trying to talk, and it was stammering tongue. It was horrific. And I showed my daughter on the phone calling me, and I was trying to touch it, and that's when I realized that my right side of my brain had shut down. And that's the side that you move your body with.
Right.
And I had to rest, and the only thing that could happen was rest. Well, fast forward, what happened was there's two things that women should know. Stress levels, such as that one, physical stress and physical stress and the psychological stress will shut your body down, especially when you're going through a hormonal situation like I was doing. The other part is my sodium level dropped so significantly low in the teens that my body couldn't do nothing but shut down. So women should know that when they're having babies or have, low iron, they have to keep a check on that, because if it dropped below 27, that's a risk factor. So I had to learn all that and deal with all of that alone, waking up from a coma and knowing that I was then dumped, hoodwinked in the hospital. That's when I knew I wasn't in a relationship anymore.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. You just making my
I tell
heart
people,
rate.
I don't know which one was worse. What do you think? Which one is worse, the psychological part or the physical part? Both of them carry a lot of weight.
Right.
I
don't know which one was worse, but I'm sorry you had to go through either one of them, but I'm glad you're on the other side, because I remember you saying that the book was birthed. So now we get to where we are now in 2017 and, kind of removed, a little, more experienced and gone through life and stuff. How did the whole book come about, and how did you know you had to get this book out to help others?
Oh, I got so many funny stories, I'm telling you. The book was birthed. I remember having my son here laying in a couch, and I was saying, God, you always showed me things about my first daughter's child's father. I mean, he would just show me things. It would just come to pass. Every time he would do something, God would show up. Nope, that's not true. This is what it is. And I would get tangible truth. And so while I was laying on the chair, there was a riot in Baltimore, and I heard 3 o'clock in the morning this voice that was familiar. It was my first child's father. And he was walking and talking, and he's supposed to have had a stroke and couldn't talk. And I was like, God, you keep showing me things about him. God was showing me that because he was walking and talking, but he wasn't coming to see us, taking care of his responsibilities. So that's how the man monster started to show up again. And from that one, a 10-year relationship that I thought I had buried. And then I prayed about it, and he said, Google the person's name, and I did. And while I was in the hospital, get this, the child's dad was supposed to be out of the town, out of the country, and God showed me he was 30 minutes away from me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how the book was initially rebirthed, if you will. I was like, that's just monster. What do you do? And so that's how it was rebirthed inside of me. And then in my prayer time, God showed me where I needed to heal. And he said, Renee, I pray for you that your faith fail not. And when you have recovered, strengthen your sisters. That was about 2 years ago. And I just laid there, and I knew I needed to recover. I didn't know exactly how I was going to strengthen my sisters until about 6 months ago, when I was looking for something to help me lead in my community. And I bumped into Lori Pelzer from Girl Go Lead on the Facebook, and she was having a conference, and we chatted over the phone. And she invited me to come see her in North Carolina. And I literally had someone watch my children while I drove 8 hours to learn how to lead, quote, unquote, in my community. And we talked, and I met some people. I shared my story, and I was a mess when I shared my story. How I'm talking to you right now was not how I was talking to her. I was crying, those women in there. I was, telling my story. And how did that happen?
Right,
and it was, emotional, because it's an emotional story.
Yeah.
We talked that night, and a couple of the mastermind sisters got together, and Lori put together her first ever mastermind, and she asked me, will you try the title of that book you told me about at the conference? I was like, I'm not trying. What do you do when your man turns into a monster? I'm a real estate agent. Let's talk about real estate. Help me create an ebook or
I know that's right. That's what I'm trying to do.
I don't want to do man monster. That's my pain. I mean, people are going to think I am in my 40s. They're going to think that I should know, but they're going to judge me. She said, no, Renee, please, just if you don't like it, I tell you what, we could do something else. Just give it a try for me.
Right.
And I tell her all the time she's a seer in the spirit, because the man monster then start to fool them. And I was everywhere. I was putting together all these ideas and all these ways where I didn't want to dig deep. And as I start to dig deep, I start to shed. And I realized that the love that I had for my dad, God loves us so much. The love that I had for my dad, he was the last face that I saw. And I told him, I know I'm not going to die because you came back to see me. And in that coma, when I woke up, I heard the Lord tell me, wake up, make memorable moments. I know I'm not going to die because my Father God came back to see me.
Wow.
And so the power in that message itself is, the man monster, the domestic violence, the things that have been going all through our lives where women don't want to share or got out their own way. But there's some practical applications that we need to do to be aware of what a man monster looks like, and that's my assignment. My assignment is to describe, how do you know you're dealing with a man monster? What are those signs? What do they look like? How come we keep ignoring the fact that we're ignoring our own gut intuition? You know you didn't like that. Why can't you say that? Is it because of religion? Is it because of what people may say? Or is it because you love him and you're not seeing the reality?
Right. I love what you said in the beginning when we first started talking. You said the street Renee would never have dealt with that, but the Christian Renee deals with that because I'm supposed to submit. And I think sometimes that we get all that stuff mixed up. God, I don't think God put any of us on this earth to be overtaken or ruled over or treated like a dustpan or a dust mat or, some kind of thing you put at the beginning of the door where you wipe your feet on. He didn't put us here to be like that. And I'm so glad that you realized that and you stood up for yourself and you are standing up for yourself and you're letting other women know. Because, that's the thing now. I talk about this thing with Harvey Weinstein, just one of the man monsters, even though he's not been the one in Hollywood, even though he's not been accused of hitting anybody, he's still abusing women. He's still sexually abusing women. He's still reigning over them emotionally, or at least he was. He may not be now, but emotionally, if someone didn't do what he said, immediately he said, well, you'll never work again in this industry. If you are a young starlet or a young person who's trying to get out there and, make your living, how detrimental is that? And how does, how that makes you feel? The same way a man, if he's trying to rule over you and say, I'll leave you, or I'll take the kids, or, he punches you or something. It's just crazy.
It's a mental, it's absolutely mental. But here is the big choice. It is a choice to stay in that. Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned earlier, you go back 7 times. And how many times did I get the calls, I need you, baby, I want my family, and we want that because that's a heart's desire. And that's when you have to really dig deep. And in the book that I have, Conquer the Man Monster, I put in a section of communication. What did you say that you initially want when you first started? And then when did the shift happen? Make an honest assessment to go back and look at what you said. And if he's doing anything different in that, then plan your escape. Because if you don't make a stance, that person is going to continue to take you for granted. That's even with our kids, right? We have to tell them no and mean it.
Mm-hmm. Right. You have to stand up. You have to plant your feet, and you have to mean it. You have to show you mean it, and you have to know, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to run. Because if he's crazy, and if he's, a person who's going to be physical to you and harm you, may go to any length to keep you from going to anyone else. So I want to say that because I just watched something on TV about this girl in a similar situation as yourself. She loved the guy. He was an alcoholic. She wanted to leave him. She tried to leave him several times, and she did leave him. But, that was what took him over the edge. And his thing was, well, if I can't have you, nobody will. And, of course, her story ended up on a Channel 2 Action News Nightline thing. So we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, no, we never want that to happen. We really never want that. Because, see, there's twofold. Because the patterns kept happening and happening and happening. I can remember me getting so mad and rage and cooking and having a butcher knife, and me responding in rage. See, you don't want to have that because that's the emotions, the rage, the stop hurting me. That's the realness of it, and that's why I say bury it, because if you cannot bury it, it will bury you. You have to move forward. Mm-hmm. You have to move. You got to and cut the weed. Don't even go back and till the garden. Cut the weeds. But if you don't address the weeds, you understand what I'm saying? If you don't clean the weeds will come up like it did with me in some other form of fashion, and that might be even more worse than the first one.
Exactly. Because I know you think you're to yourself, I'm a strong woman. I'm a woman of God. I'm not some pansy person, some yes woman, but how do I let this happen? And know that you aren't alone because, I was in a violent relationship in my first marriage. So I know exactly, because people look at me now, they're like, Carol, you really? I was like, yeah. We would get in knockdown, drag-out fights. Both of us fighting. And my situation came to a head just almost the same with you. When you looked in your child's eyes, I looked in my son's eyes, and, I was at a point where my husband had a knife. And my ex-husband had a knife, and I just knew if I didn't get out of that little tiny bathroom that I might not be standing to say anything to my son the next day. So I just left,
Right.
So it's one of those things where we all come face to face with the man monster, and that's why I wanted to have you on today. So now I know you've talked about the book, and you've also got a play going. So tell us how we can, learn from you, get this man monster thing out of us, and really put ourselves, and stand in our truth. How can you help us do that?
The play itself will depict what a man monster looks like, what a woman monster looks like, your inner man monster, because there's so many twists in there. There's sometimes where you can't take enough and you have a breaking point. And so the play describes that, but in a, I want to say comedy way, but in a laughter way, because, joy does come with some education. So we tried to make it a little bit humorous in the beginning of the play, and you kind of laugh. We put it in the salon. All the drama happened in the salon. And to be actually honest, guess what? My story is based out of the salon. So it was, funny stuff. It is some funny things that happen in the salon. It wasn't always so serious. It wasn't always so harsh and hurtful, but people would say you just loved him because he could do anything and you was all right. So the play kind of depicts that type of relationship. And then from a teen perspective, it shows some of the young teen actors and children actresses that we had in the play depicting how they can handle themselves too. You know, we don't always have to repeat generational curses. Right. The beautiful part about it is we have a musical play, so all the actors and actresses are singers, and we created a soundtrack for the play. It's absolutely amazing because it is actually a videotape, a product, a CD that you can put in someone's hand, come take a look at it physically, and say, you will not believe what God is doing. Here, take a look at this. And as they are looking at it, if they're going through anything similar in that particular video, they will see themselves and say, okay, this is how I can get out of it. Oh, there is hope. Oh, okay, I don't want to keep doing this because there's a pattern. Oh, okay, guys are narcissistic and even women are too. So you can see that in this particular gospel musical comedy stage play, The Man Monster.
Awesome. And how do we find it? I know you have a website for it.
Yes, I do. www.themanmonster.com. www.themanmonster.com. That's TheManMonster.com. Or feel free to call us at 301-778-8626, 301-778-8626, or 8MAN, M-A-N.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Renee, for coming on, for sharing your heartfelt story. I know there's not too many dry eyes out there. I had to hold mine back because I had to keep asking you some questions and keep my mind alert. But you have gone through a lot.
Yeah.
But you have helped you are going to help so many women right now to stand in their truth, stand in their purpose, and to get away from the man monster, or at least realize where they are so that they can make that choice, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is the goal. Strengthen the woman.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to let you get on your way.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me again, and all the best. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We truly appreciate it. For information about guests, products, or services that were mentioned in this episode, log on to our website at www.csicorporation.com/unmarketing. To learn more, get a glimpse of our upcoming schedule, and join the unmarketing nation of entrepreneurs who are using marketing techniques that work right now. Until next time, keep moving forward.
Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
My boss says I'm going to be traveling a lot for business, so I need network coverage that works as hard as I do.
Don't worry, you got this with Total Wireless. Our phones run on the nation's largest, most dependable 4G LTE network.
The nation's largest network? That definitely works.
Now you can focus on the important stuff, like getting your expense reports done on time.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Now open in New York. Refer to the latest terms and conditions of service at totalwireless.com.